David Ducker coming back at you. And today I'm going to be talking about hack and slashing. Now I know that you were expecting this to be a bash video, that you're expecting me to say hack and slash is trash, and I'm so tempted to say that it is. But there are valid reasons that you might not want to activate your brain, that you might not want to think deeply, to get invested, to engage in empathy. So I wanted to do this video talking about how to do hack and slashing correctly. Because as much as hack and slash is not my preferred style, I have engaged in it from time to time, both as a GM and as a player, come to think of it. And I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done really poorly. And usually hack and slash is done really poorly, which is another reason people crack jokes on the style, why I crack jokes on the style sometimes. Because even when it's done by its enthusiasts, by its supporters, it still is not always done well. So how should you do hack and slash? Or should we define what is hack and slash? Hack and slash is a combat-driven game. It's juvenile, it's good versus evil, it's corny, it's cheesy, it's bombastic, it's over the top, it's a cartoon. This is something a child can engage in. This is something that you can sit down and perhaps, play with your 10-year-old. It's going to be Star Wars. It's going to be Indiana Jones. There's very little moral complexity, probably no moral complexity. It's obvious. It's the obvious thing to do. We are good. We're white-hatted heroes. We have the goodly king, and Gandalf is standing next to me, and the Force, and we're looking across the screen at Darth Vader, at Rathamon, at Skeletor, people with skulls and snakes, people who are obviously evil, and they should know that they're evil and stop doing what they're doing, but they're not going to stop, so we've got to stop them. And it's very polarizing. That can be great. It can be great to say, I know he's bad, I'm going to put the boots to him with no remorse. And when he's coming back on me, I'm going to have all the sympathy. Everybody knows I'm the underdog. Everybody knows I don't deserve this kind of treatment. And, you can really fire up off of that. Right? So this can be a really fiery way to play the game. So that's what it is. Now, how should you do it? So if you're the player, first of all, because I've seen players do hack and slash really terribly. If you're the player, remember, this is a basic game. Okay, you've got to stick to your foundation, to your basic tenets. You have to make sure your team is super tight. We're the best of friends, Robin Hood and Friar Tuck and Will Scarlet and Little John. We're sticking tight together. I trust this guy like he's my brother. I love this man standing next to me, and I trust him to breathe my air with his lungs, to pump my blood with his heart. I trust this man. You've got to be that tight team. Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. After, they didn't like each other at first. For the first, few minutes they were together. The first half hour maybe. But by the time that second movie rolls around, they're tight. And they care about each other. They want to save each other. They want to help each other in everything that's going on. So the team needs to be really, really tight. That's one thing I often see done poorly. Now the rest of your tripod, the setting and the story, that's on the GM. But the team is more important here because the action is more bombastic, because it's more narrative, because it's less complicated. So we need to push the pace and keep it hot the whole time. So that's number one for the player. Number two for the player is you need to be entertaining. We don't have shades of gray. We don't have depth and complexity. We don't have plot hooks, because that's what a lot of this depth and complexity is. Those are our plot hooks. All we have now is the bad guy and the good guy, and that's it. And if the good guy's not interesting, or if the bad guy's not interesting, that can be really boring. So you need to come in with over the top personality. Whether you're playing somebody who's buffoonish and comic relief, but can get serious at times, or whether you're the brooding, grim, angry loner type who's got to work with the team. Because you don't actually want to go lone wolf. You don't want to split, but you can tease that you're going to split. You can be a curmudgeon. You could be Gimli and keep trying to say, oh, maybe we should be evil. To the point where, again, it could get absurd. And it's like, come on, Gimli. We're not going to use the undead army, Gimli. Please. But it's over the top. That's what you want to do. You want to be a caricature of a character. So make sure your character's interesting, he's entertaining, that you will be able to entertain the other players around your table. Very important, because if your character's flat and he's two-dimensional, well, the story is flat and two-dimensional because it's hack and slash. So it's like, we're in trouble now, right? If you're going to be two-dimensional, be corny, be cheesy, be bombastic, be over the top. Bombastic is my word of the day, by the way. So as a player, you have a lot more on your shoulders because the GM isn't going to do much. He's going to do good and evil, and that's like it. So as a player, you got a lot of slack you have to pick up because you don't have necessarily all these different factions and all these different nuanced NPCs and interesting characters. You've just got a few characters, and you just got a few factions to work with, because otherwise it starts to get into shades of gray, and that's not what hack and slash is. So you need to carry more of the entertainment load in whatever form or function you want to do that in. But you have to do it. You have to have big personality out of your character, or else the whole game will suffer because there's less the GM can do to help you. So that's on the player's end. On the GM's end, what do you need to do? Again, keep it simple. Good guys, bad guys, they're going to fight. They're going to fight again and again and again and again. So the bad guy needs his whole team of henchmen, right? He needs, look at Princess Bride. Vizzini has Inigo, you got to fight Inigo. He's got Fezzik, you got to fight Fezzik. And then finally you get through to Vizzini. That was one movie, but to stretch it out into a campaign, give him like 10 henchmen. He's got orcs, he's got undead, he's got serpent men, he's got the dreaded Migo. Whatever he's got, make sure he's got a lot of them, because you got to hack and slash your way through. And that's going to be your try and fail cycle. Where you try and you get beat down, or you try and get beat down, or you try, you get a small victory, and then you got to try against a bigger bad guy next time. Right? So keep it very, very simple in that regard. You don't want, again, multiple factions. It'll confuse the issue. You don't want shades of gray. You don't want neutrality. You want good and evil, and they're fighting for a long time. So that needs a big army of baddies to hack your way through, to cleave in twain. So that's one thing as a GM that you really need, is simplicity, is big bad guys, and that can, the other way to do it, so you've got the big army, the other way to do it, have the main antagonist, the bad guy, give him an escape route, whether it's a belt of teleporting, ring of invisibility, whether it's super speed, whether he's a ghost and he just phases through walls and your whole campaign is about getting that ghost touch sword to finally cut this guy in half. Whatever it is, just make him untouchable in some way. He doesn't need goons if he can do all the dirty work himself without fear of injury. It could be maybe he's just invulnerable to harm. Get the Juggernaut in there. Whatever it is. And then the quest can be, how do we beat the Juggernaut? Or better yet, Godzilla. How do we beat Godzilla? It depends on your genre, obviously. You can hack and slash space opera, you can hack and slash superheroes, you can hack and slash fantasy, whatever you want. You can hack and slash your way through it. So keep it simple. Have a big bad guy, have an untouchable bad guy. He's untouchable because he can get away, because he's invincible, because he's got all the goons, whatever it is. So as a big picture planning, that's what you need. Session to session, the pacing is very important in hack and slash play. You want it hot and heavy and fast and furious. That's what hack and slash should be, that's what it is. So what you need to do is run every session just like you always would. You know, start the players off. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. It may get them into combat or it may not. You know, they're going to be driving the plot because that's their job as the players. But when you hit that halfway mark in your session, if you're running 4 hours, the end of the second hour, if they're not in combat, as a GM, you need to take over. You need to do some railroading, soft railroading, but you need to make sure there's combat every session. You need to throw something at them. There was a famous author who said, whenever I'm in a scene and it feels boring, I just have a man burst through the door with a gun. And it gets exciting again. Do that. If the first 2 hours, if they're not in a fight, you throw a fight in. The merchant they're talking to morphs into a serpent man. You know, a pickpocket leads them into an ambush. Hell Gate opens up and demons come pouring out. A flying saucer suddenly beams them up and they have to fight their way out of the mothership. Random encounters. It can be anything. It can be tied to the plot. It can be not tied to the plot. It can be wandering monsters. It can be an avalanche. It can be a tidal wave, a hurricane, a volcano. You know, it doesn't have to be a fight necessarily, but you need some kind of action, a chase, a disaster. It could be a puzzle, depending on the kind of puzzle, as long as the pacing is really fast. You need that fast action scene in there, and it's probably going to take up at least an hour, maybe 2 hours of the session. So probably about half of every session will be just action. And then we don't have time for a lot of plot, and that's fine because it's hack and slash. You know, so we don't need the complex plot. I had a great discussion with one of the guys on the board, and you know, I gave him like my whole campaign. I'm like, they're gonna do this, 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 this. It was like, you know, 15 things, and he's like, oh, well, what about session 2? And I'm like, session 2? That's my whole campaign. That's gonna be like 50 sessions. And he's like, oh, 50 sessions? Like, I would get like, we could do that in one session. And I'm like, yeah, I could do it in one session as well, but my usual pace is so slow because we're talking, we're interacting with the NPCs, we're planning, we're moving around. The world's so big and complex, and oh, there's 50 factions. So we're not going to be able to do much because we're exploring so much. That's my usual style, but hack and slash is not like that. Hack and slash is like we're going from A to B to C to D and on down the line. It's going to be simple, but it's going to take a long time because it's packed with action. You don't get a lot of decisions. You don't get a lot of forks in the road or the storyline. But we're going to have a lot of action on the way. We're going to have a lot of fights, a lot of chases. That's going to take up time, but it's also going to burn through encounters, and encounters can be plot. So you can burn through a plot really fast with hack and slash if you want to. And the way to mitigate that is random encounters, things that don't mean anything. A lion attacks me. What does the lion have to do with the main plot? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But it's there for pacing. And any campaign needs pacing, thought about ahead of time, during the session, after the session. Pacing is so important to your style. So that's pretty much my brief overview of hack and slash. Keep it very, very simple and pay close attention to the pacing. Keep it highly entertaining. Cheese. Get the corny factor. The villains are really evil. The heroes are really noble. And that's about all I got to say about hack and slash in a positive way. I've cracked jokes on it a lot, but I thought I'd do a positive video about it. Let me know your thoughts on hack and slash. Am I doing it completely wrong? In the comments below, tell me so. Give me a video response back. How do you do it? What did I forget to mention? And until I see you again, good day and good gaming.